Wake up, Detroit. I'm Joanne Watson, and this is your wake-up call.
When a brown girl child is born, the earth shifts. The sun is at half-mast. The moon waits for her first cry. The ancestors set the table. The flowers turn red as blood. This is your land, continent daughter, with tree trunk legs and branches for arms. This is your soil, black and fertile as your eyes facing an apartheid Jim Crow current past memory. Some of us begin the removal of shackles at birth. We grow into the armor of struggle quickly. We brew courage in our tea, blend bravery into our Sunday dinners. Joanne Watson, you understand nation building is not a part-time job. This dedicated life is sometimes lonely, a vulnerable choice, but it is the only way you know how to operate. You are wired for the movement in your black women bones, even when tired, still fighting, still organizing, still singing morning spirituals. You were born to lead, even in your own family, the eldest of 10 children born to Jefferson and Lestine. You made Damon, Nefertari, Stephen, Maya. Her children always knew she was larger than life. When you are a woman in the movement, you take the children with you on the journey. You bring the babies with you to your college classes. When you travel to Ghana for the first time, it will be with your daughters in tow. When you are a fearless, nationalist thinking mama, mothering never stops with your own babies. 30 godchildren and mentees across the globe. The daughter of a ministering mother is already ordained for good trouble. A seer, a prophetic young student preparing for her lifelong role as servant to her own community. When your purse was snatched in a Farmer Jack parking lot many years ago with your kids' tickets to Run DMC in the purse, you made sure they still got to that concert and even hosted Medley Merrill and the Furious Five in your living room, because queens make it look easy. When you're a single mom, people will tell you what you can't do. Instead, you moved to New York City with all 4 of your C's to do your necessary work with the YWCA, because queens make it look easy. Ghana, Togo, South Africa, where is your heart, Mama Watson? Nurturing spirit, baking melt in your mouth, homemade biscuits. How many hours do you sleep, Warrior Watson, with endless work ethic and blue-collar blood racing through your veins? How do we say thank you for your work, your time, your heart? We know you will never really retire. There is a fire on the path to freedom. There is smoke, there is sacrifice, there are stories of justice, of women, of Tubman, Sojourner, of Angela, Asada, Coretta, and Merle, and Betty, and Queen Mother Moore. Some of us know we are ancient, that our marrow is laced with legacy, that we are here to bring light to our daughters. Sometimes it just takes one woman, a mother, a grandmother, a Spitfire, griot, a sister, the only woman to lead the NAACP's largest chapter. She, daughter of the movement, of Rosa, of Irma. She was a birth that gave birth to possibility for other young activists like me, a true D woman, frontline Fatima, Nigerian blood, councilwoman, leader, truth teller, Joanne Watson, social worker, president of the Anti-Clan Network, sister, inspiration, dedicated to the protection of girls and the voices of women wrapped in West African beauty, regal and resilient. Wake up, Detroit. Wake up, South Africa. Wake up, Cuba. Wake up, small business owners. Wake up, White House. Wake up, reparations. Wake up, teachers. Wake up, women. Wake up, schools. Sleeping is not an option when the Honorable Joanne Watson is in the room.
Wake up, Detroit. I'm Joanne Watson. This is your wake-up call. It's a wonderful day to rise and shine and get out the vote. We're so blessed to be in partnership with the Black Congress on Health, Law, Economics, and Education. And our sponsor, our counsel, the attorney, Derek A. Humphreys, is in the house. He's going to lay out the lineup and also talk about the importance of this partnership, this international version of Wake Up Detroit, so we can get the vote out, not only for November 3rd, but right now. People are voting right now. Wake up, Detroit. Attorney Derek Humphreys is in the house.
Thank you so very much. The Honorable Joanne Watson, we thank you so very much for that introduction. And we're glad to join you and WHPR TV. We thank you so very much. I'm in Washington, D.C. Our guests are in different parts of the United States. And we're honored to have today with us. And I'll just read those who will join us and those who are with us. Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, representing the 14th Congressional District in Michigan, will be with us. Congresswoman Lauren Underwood, representing the 4th Congressional District of Illinois. Holly Holiday, President, Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote, and Campaign Manager, National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, Washington, D.C. The Reverend Dr. Anthony Medley, he was here with the senior pastor, Emmanuel Brinklow, Seventh-day Adventist Church, based in Ashton, Maryland. Welcome, Reverend Medley.
Thank you.
The Honorable Mark Morrell, President, the National Urban League, headquartered in New York City, a civil rights warrior. Welcome, welcome, President Morrell.
Thank you.
Hey. Dr. Dwayne Taylor will also join us. He is the president of the American Academy of Otolaryngology. Otolaryngology. That means medical specialist in treating diseases of the ear, nose, and throat, base of the skull, head, and neck. And Dr. Taylor is the first African-American physician to serve as president of this esteemed national organization. Indeed, he also is the president of the Washington, D.C. chapter of Sigma Pi Phi fraternity known as the Boule. And so we also have representing the Black Congress on Health Law and Economics, the Honorable Dorothy Jackson, Executive Director and Policy Council, and Dr. Dennis Rogers, the National Field Director for the Black Congress on Health Law and Economics, based in Raleigh, North Carolina. We say hello to both. And so today, the mission, moving from protest to power at the polls. The message, register, educate, and mobilize to participate in the upcoming election. And so we say thank you again to the Honorable Joanne Watson for hosting this segment of this show as we move forward with the Black Congress on Health Law and Economics and with WHPR. We thank you again.
Thank you very much, Attorney Derek Humphreys, who has been living in Washington, D.C., traveling around the world for many decades, but who I should hurry up and say is a native Detroiter. His sweet little mama, Mary Jane Humphreys, might be watching, so I have to mention that. We thank God. She's the prettiest woman in Detroit, so we send a greetings out to Mary Jane Humphreys, who we love and respect, in her 9th decade, still taking care of the West Side. I want to bring forth a man who is an icon in the national civil rights movement, one who is respected, one who is honored, one who has paid dues on many levels. The Honorable Mark Morrell, national leader of the National Urban League. Welcome to Wake Up Detroit.
Hey, good morning, Detroit, and good morning, Wake Up Detroit. It's so great to be with you, and I love your fire and enthusiasm and passion, and it's indeed an honor to be with so many outstanding leaders and servants, people who are serving the people of Detroit and the people of communities all across the nation. So good morning to all. I just want to add two things this morning that are important. We have been emphasizing, talking about, asserting the necessity of voting in this election. And I want to just affirm it, amen it, co-sign it. But I also want people to know that there is a concerted, it is a well-organized, highly financed, systemic effort to deny us the right to vote, to psychologically intimidate us from voting. We have been in litigation for the last month with the United States Postal Service. And I'm hopeful that very soon we're going to get a resolution of that lawsuit that's going to be favorable. But it was just one additional example of efforts to make it more difficult for people to vote, to suppress the vote, to intimidate black voters, all in the quest of power. So I want people to be determined as ever. We need to be determined like Harriet Tubman.
That's
we
right.
need to be determined like Frederick Douglass.
You
We
better
need to be determined like Rosa Parks, like John Lewis on that bridge. We need to be determined to say we will not be turned around.
That's
we will
right.
vote if we have to stand in long lines. We will vote if we have to put on a hazmat suit. We will vote with a mask. We'll vote on a bike. We'll vote on a trike. We'll vote on a skateboard. We will vote no matter what it takes. Now, let me tell you, in the final days before November 3rd, the internet is going to be filtered and flooded with negative messages targeted at the black community. They are messages of what are called deterrence. They're messages to try to deter us from voting. There'll be attacks on Kamala Harris. There'll be attacks on the essence of voting. They'll use code words. They'll use words like selling out that we respond to. But all of it is designed to trick us from voting. And this flooding of the internet is going to happen with people wearing masks. What do I mean? They're going to mask themselves as conscious, woke black activists. They're going to mask themselves as, quote, leaders in the community. But it's going to really be the Russians with whoever their cohorts are here in the United States trying to do it. So I want people to beware of the tactics that are going to be used, the tactics of desperation, the tactics of totalitarianism, the tactics of suppression. We have to keep our message strong. We have to keep our message positive. The National Urban League and the Detroit Urban League are working in Detroit. We're working in 6 states. We're working concertedly in 19 communities, all 90 of our affiliates. They're activists, they're faith leaders, they're elected officials, they're civic clubs, they're community clubs, all across the nation who understand the consequence of this election, and we're going to turn this vote out. So we don't want to be deterred, and I think we need to make people aware that some of what they're going to see and what they're seeing already, because we are keeping an eye on this and monitoring this, will not be what it appears. It will be those seeking to deter. And why do I use the word deterrence? Because that is the name that the people who are orchestrating this campaign used in 2016, and they're using it again. Let's target voters and let's message to deter them from voting, while at the same time we attack the post office, we enact voter ID laws. It's an all-out assault, but we cannot be intimidated. And Black America and people of goodwill of all races and people of justice are going to send a powerful message if we turn out in record numbers. So I wanted to say that this morning, and I know everyone on this call embraces this, but we need to repeat it, and be good troublemakers.
That's
John
right.
Lewis counseled us.
Excellent. What a way to kick us off. Now that's a wake-up call, the Honorable Mark Morial. Thank you so much. And you are so right. We certainly don't want to repeat of what happened in 2016. So we have to be on guard. We have to be ready. We have to respond, and we have to recognize those persons who are stooges, who are wearing a mask, as you so well put it, who may show up on social media, who may show up in neighborhood meetings, who may show up trying to turn the vote around and turn the vote back. So grateful for that presence today. And that
Thank you.
Excellent. We want to now turn to, is Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence in the house? If not, we're going to bring forth the significant leadership of Attorney Dorothy Jackson, who is going to set the stage for the tremendous network, national network that is being put together in order to help achieve our purpose of having a massive voter turnout, not only on November 3rd, but right now we've seen long lines this week in Texas and Georgia.
Well, we've seen in Georgia, people stand in line for 10 hours to make sure they voted. And one young man that they interviewed said that because of people like John Lewis and his family, he was given the opportunity to vote and he was going to stand there until he voted. The other thing is, I wanted to follow up what Mark Morial said about all these distractions. There are a lot of distractions, a lot of terms people are using. They don't make any sense. So all you have to do is keep in mind to have a plan and vote. Don't listen to these terms that don't make any sense, like packing the court. That's a distraction. Fake ballot boxes and how they're not taking them down. People are really on top of that. For example, in Prince George's County, Maryland, the county executive has 2 police cars stationed at every ballot box, so people will not be deterred from going up and putting in their ballot. So people just have to stay focused and keep your eye on voting. All these other terms and all these other things don't make any sense. Just vote, vote, vote. And one of our previous guests, I think it was Rob Robertson from the NFL, he used a term called choose to win. So let's remember that we choose to win, and with God on our side, we will win. And every organization, all the organizations and people represented on this call are doing exactly that, working to win.
That's right. That's right. Let me ask Tim to make sure no one's waiting to be admitted. We want to make sure all of our guests are admitted onto the panel. Let me ask Dr. Dennis Rogers to talk about the importance of keeping boots on the ground as we do this important work in these last couple of weeks before the election.
Yes, ma'am. I think consistently with what President Morial laid before us and Attorney Jackson, it's the notion that we have something of value and others recognize it. The only reason someone attempts to take something from you is because it is of value. And as it relates to boots on the ground, we know that, for example, in the state of North Carolina, people were at the polls as early as 4 o'clock this morning, waiting for the polls to open. And so this notion that we have consistently protected what is valuable to us from can't see in the morning to can't see in the night is the order of the day.
You better say it.
As mentioned in Atlanta, Georgia, with all of the shenanigans, young people are standing in the polls, and we're seeing youth leadership emerge as or alternative voices, shall we say, in the example of Killer Mike. He's a hip hop artist in Atlanta who's taken the notion of politics and economics to a further, position by opening up a digital bank. And he was a part of the Black Bank movement, but in his level of influence, he's influencing an entire generation of hip hop artists and influencers to encourage others to vote. I don't know if anyone watched the NBA finals, but they took a page from the NAACP and the Urban League, and they all wore a shirt that said vote, and they all took a knee for Breonna Taylor. So it's in that spirit that boots are on the ground and people are moving to both protect our vote and to make sure that we are voting on election day. And early voting has already begun. People are voting as we speak.
Excellent, excellent. Attorney Derek A. Humphreys, if you would lead us through our other tremendous panelists as we continue this lineup. This is a powerful presentation, and we want to make sure we have everybody's voice included.
Well, we have Reverend Anthony Medley with us, and from the church, and he is active, very active with the church from border to border and from coast to coast.
All right.
Reverend Medley.
Attorney Humphreys, thank you. And I am just delighted and honored to be a part of this panel discussion today. And I want to assure you, as all of us know, that in our communities, the churches have always been the anchor for our coalitions for voting and for civil rights moving forward. And so I stand in the legacy of the things that were done prior to me being here. I sit here, of course, as a Seventh-day Adventist pastor, pastoring the Emmanuel Brinklow Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I want you to know that from our location, the Emmanuel Brinklow Church, we have connections around the country. We utilize our networking coast to coast to include and to involve many in the faith community, especially in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, to be actively involved in voting this time. And especially, this is the most significant voting season that we have had in such a long time. Let me also give some clarity to those who are listening and Wake Up Detroit, that when you think about Seventh-day Adventists, you think about a diverse congregation, or diverse denomination that is a part of the evangelical movement. That is cold word and often a misrepresentative word for that. You know, when you hear the cold, I go back to what was said earlier, that sometimes it is wolves in sheep clothing, and becomes cold word to distract us from our involvement. But out of our 1.2 million Seventh-day Adventists in North America, I want you to know that there are at least 50% or more who are African Americans or Black descents. And there is, through the 9 regional conferences, there's a very strong coalition to pull us together to make sure that from the Seventh-day Adventist perspective, that we are engaged and out and involved to make sure that we are rallying our communities, our families, our friends, wherever we have influence, to vote during this season. That work is being done. And we believe that the Emmanuel Brinklow Church is a model for what we believe is taking place throughout this country. We join hands in partnerships with you to ensure that we are voting. We're voting now. We have strategies to get people out to vote. And we're also trying to make sure that we have even a census amongst our own membership to ensure that at least 90% of all of our congregations are registered and active voters. So we partner with you. I'm so glad to be on this, again, this panel this morning. And I promise you that there are record numbers of Seventh-day Adventists who are voting in the right direction. Here's our cold word. We need a change in the White House. So that's the direction.
Come on now. I love it.
Reverend Medley, you know, one of the maxims and principles which guide the Black Congress on health, law, and economics is teamwork makes the dream work. And we'd like to invite you to share with Mark Morial, the National Urban League, how you may plan to work with the National Urban League as we move forward.
Thank you, and thank you for asking that question. I think it's critically important. As we know, our voting now is on the national level, but we also believe in working on the local level. It doesn't stop with November 3rd. This is a year-round contribution for us. As Emmanuel Brinklow Church, one of our major emphasis is on whole life, dealing with the disparities of health that especially impact brown and Black people. And that has been our mission over several years. What we would love to do in terms of partnership is the notion of, you know, we conduct for Montgomery County. I live in Prince George's County, so we have a coalition between the 2 counties. We would like to continue to working on those who are suffering from health disparities. We run free clinics for dental and vision clinics. We are actively involved in Montgomery County, which is, as many know, a very wealthy county, but there are pockets of impoverished communities within every county. So we have partnered with the Section 8 housing, with the HOCs, to make sure that we provide foods for those who are in need. And this is not, we started as a pop-up pantry, but we have become now a permanent food site for our counties. So between our food, between our health, we also have worked for first-time home buyers, because we believe empowering our communities to become homeowners makes a significant difference. We also are working with the issue of financial literacy. We have a tutorial program that is taking place in our public school system. So anything that we can do as a church, and we want to partner with you. I'm so glad that Attorney Jackson has invited me and asked me to be a part of this, because often Seventh-day Adventists historically have worked individually behind the scenes. But I'm here to tell you that we are coming together as a coalition, a movement, to come from the individual work to come into the collective work, to partner with you, to move for the well-being of our people in all of our communities. So thank you for this opportunity to share this. And I pray for those in Detroit who also are Seventh-day Adventists, that you will also wake up, become a part of, and collaborate and join these wonderful initiatives that are going forward. We must stop working in silos and start working together for the cause of humanity. Thank you.
Praise God. We're so happy to have you here, and certainly want to send a shout out to one of my aunts who works for the City Temple Seventh-day Adventist Church on the west side of Detroit. Thank you so much. It's such a blessing to have you on, to have your voice, to have your commitment, have your partnership as a part of this movement this day. And
Holly Holiday is with us, and as I introduced her, I noted that she is the president of Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote.
Come on now.
And together with that, the campaign manager for the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, Melanie Campbell, leads that organization, a good friend of Mark Morrell. Mark Morrell works cooperation with the National Coalition. And so, Holly, would you please talk with us about Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote, and your activities?
Thank you so much. And yes, I absolutely work with Melanie Campbell, and greetings to her this morning, and I'm glad to be here with you. I can't come virtually to Detroit and not honor the fact that I actually got my career started in Detroit, lived in Detroit for many years, right there off Gratiot and Lafayette.
Come on now.
One of my first things that I did was run a voter program in Detroit, registering over 65,000 people in the metro area. So when I come here, I want to make sure I come correct, because Detroit is a big part of my history and one of my favorite cities.
Go ahead.
You know, today is a really important day. You know, I could talk about Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote. We're doing a lot to uplift and make sure that politically women's voices are not only viable, but protected. You know, people come after us sometimes when we start to stand up, and the more righteous we are, the more the attacks start to come. And
that's right.
Here, I'm excited to be a part of a large network of Black women around the country through a network we refer to as Black Women United. You may have seen the hashtag Win with Black Women. We are fighting to make sure that Black women up and down the ballot have their voices heard, and that they are not muffled by anti-racist or white supremacist doctrine that we're all living under. So I'll say that word, but I want to say especially to my friends in Detroit and my coworkers that are in Detroit, because we have an affiliate, the Michigan Coalition on Black Civic Participation, operating right there in Metro Detroit as well as Kalamazoo, Michigan. You talked about my good friend and soror, Dorothy Jackson, mentioned you got to have a plan to vote.
That's right.
Detroit, voter registration ends October 19th. So we need you to take advantage of these next few days to get registered. To make sure you are registered. And yes, Michigan is one of those states that does have election day registration, but you want to make a plan and get in there early. We talked about the lines, and what does making a plan mean? It means making sure you're registered to vote. You can do that today. What does making a plan mean? It means figuring out how you're going to vote. This is not an ordinary election, and we've heard our esteemed panelists talk about how they're coming for our vote. They want to deter you. So what do you do in the face of deterrence? You get organized and you start making a plan. It means decide today how you're going to vote, when you're going to vote. Are you going to need to request an absentee ballot? If you do, you need to do so before October 30th. Maybe you want to vote early. Well, you'll be able to do that October 24th through November 2nd. You need to know these things so you can come organized. You invoked Rosa Parks. Well, Rosa Parks didn't just decide one day to get on the bus. She had a plan. She had a purpose. She woke up that morning knowing exactly what she's going to do. And that's the spirit in which I'm going to encourage our Metro Detroit friends to do. Wake up and vote with purpose. Wake up and make sure you have a plan. Know in advance how it's all going to take place. If you know for you, voting is an action and you want to be engaged in the process, which means you want to vote early or go on election day, bring a chair, make a snack, be ready to go, be ready to face any and all obstacles. And if you've done all that you can do and you still encounter problems, take down this number, 866-R-VOTE, because they're going to make sure that you have lawyers on deck, that you have advocates on deck to make sure that your vote counts. Thank you so much, Ms. Watson, for letting me join you this morning and be a part of this esteemed panel.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Your voice is so important. And thank you for those Detroit roots and that Detroit experience that you have shared with us. And thank you for the priority of voting that you have put on our plate today as we engage in this significant presentation to get out the vote in record numbers nationally.
Reverend, I just add one quick thing. It's not on voting, but it's so important. We had a devastating blow this week from the Supreme Court related to the census. Today is the last day to complete the census self-response. So please, if you haven't completed your census, do so today. The time is right now. You can do so at my2020census.gov, right from the comfort of your own house in less than 10 minutes. You can even do it on the little magic box on your phone. So please allow me to share that as well, because it's just so important. And having lived in Detroit for almost 10 years, I know how important having those resources in Detroit is.
That's right. It's directly related to revenue sharing. The revenue sharing that comes from the federal government to the state governments that's appropriated to municipalities and townships and villages is based on the census. So there's a direct relationship between the census and the money that is appropriated in our own community. So I appreciate your sending out that census alert today. Thank you so much.
And indeed, that is needed. It's once again, teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes.
Now we know that the Honorable Mark Morial has indicated that he has another commitment. And I think that if you're still on, Mark, I'd like for you to just give a final word.
I think he's gone.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So as we move forward, there are many aspects to this as we think about this being across the nation, and we thank WHBR for doing that. It's a message that goes across the country, and we want to emphasize this is not just Detroit. It's through your leadership that this program is going out across the country and through the world through YouTube and Facebook. And that's important in getting the word out to all of those who are active in achieving the goal of total voter participation in conjunction with the November 3rd election. And we just thank you.
Praise God. Let me ask if Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence on board yet. All right. We want to invite the significant leadership of Dr. Dennis Rogers, I'm going to ask him to speak to the millennials today.
Thank you. I attended the Melanie Campbell School, Graduate School of Voter Participation, the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, and our prayers are out to her. And we know that the work she's doing is Herculean because the National Coalition brings together some 82 national associations from A. Philip Randolph to A. Better Chance, literally to Zeta Phi Beta, and all of these organizations around the country, as Dr. Medley mentioned, as Reverend Dr. Medley mentioned, they're operating in local communities to get the vote out. So we know that the NAACP has 500 youth and college divisions that are getting out the vote. We know that the National Urban League has the New Lights units, chapters that are getting out the vote. We know that Unity 9, of which Attorney Jackson serves as their chairperson, is getting out the vote through the fraternities and sororities. We've seen on YouTube people dressed in paraphernalia actually strolling to the polls. There's a website, it's called Watch the Yard. And this is a young gentleman, a Kappa Alpha Psi affiliated young man, who created a website where the younger Black Greek fraternity and sorority members come together. And through that vehicle, they're encouraging young people engaged on college campuses to get the vote out. They're running ads. They're putting messaging together. In addition, students on college campuses that are affiliated with Black student unions are getting out the vote, as well as community activists. And we'll have some of them on the show with you next week. But in places like Baltimore, where an organization called Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle that came out of the Freddie Gray incident, they have been advocating social justice and registering and getting people out to vote in this cycle. We'll hear from them. The Florida African American Student Association, which is a network of Black student unions throughout Florida, and we know how important Florida is in this case. Also engaging in voter registration and getting out to vote, even in the midst of COVID. So again, from can't see in the morning to can't see in the night, we are staying focused and on purpose. And again, with Melanie Campbell's leadership at the National Coalition, with all of our combined effort, we have this one. We just got to do the work. We have to do the work.
That's right. Do the work. Well, I appreciate Melanie Campbell's name being mentioned. She has been in the movement for getting out the vote and civic participation down through the years.
Yes.
And quite frankly, is legendary and has earned that reputation.
Absolutely.
We love Melanie Campbell and has been mentored by the best great people like Dr. Dorothy Irene Height. We just love calling her name.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Joseph Lowry,
Reverend Dr. Joseph Lowry,
Bill Womack, Richard Womack,
right.
so many others. So, my goodness.
My.
Lucy. Don't forget the lady.
A great Bill Lucy, who was a guest here last week. My.
Yes. Now, Holly, you mentioned that you may be a member of a certain sorority. As you referred to you and Dorothy Jackson being sorors. Could you share with us how your work spills over into what the sorority may be doing on a national basis?
That Divine Nine.
Yes, well, I happen to be a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Well,
national president, Dr. Glenda Glover, has really helped us to set the tone and worked in conjunction with all the sororities, and in fact, all of the major women groups, including Black Women's Roundtable that Melanie Campbell convenes, to pull together what we call Sisters United in Reform. And so they have set the tone, and this week in particular, all of the sororities have held every single night they've had a day, everyone has had a day, to reach up and reach out to their members to ensure that we are engaged in voting. But not only engaged in voting for ourselves, but reaching out to our networks. To ensure that they are engaged in voting, reaching out to our communities. We know that sorority and Greek life in the African American community is one of the stalwart pillars, and that when we reach out to our community, we reach millions of people.
That's right.
And that's what we've been invoked to do. And, so many things are on the ballot, but most importantly is the life as we know it as African Americans is on the ballot. And who's in charge and who's in office matters to us. And we're making sure that this election is not going to go by without knowing that we are standing up and we are voting.
Dorothy Jackson, might you
Yes.
share with us how many chapters there are in your sorority across the country, so that we can see how the chain exists and how others can coalesce with Alpha Kappa Alpha?
Well, I think I have to, I'm going to punt, if that's the correct term, because we have official spokespersons for Alpha Kappa Alpha, and I don't want to breach any protocol by speaking on behalf of the sorority. I can only speak for myself, and our motto is to be of service to all mankind. So let me just say we have 11 regions all over the world, and this is a national and global program that is going to be rebroadcast later, and a lot of people will be watching. So I will concur with what my sister Holly said, and also talk about the Unity 9 Political Action Coalition. And several of those organizations have been on this program, and several others will be coming on in the coming weeks. So I just think that everybody is working on voting, and that's what we're doing, working to get out the vote. The Unity 9 Political Action Coalition understands and is educating people that to get people elected, they need funds. So you also have to help them get funds. But going back to the people that I always refer to as the everyday people and connecting with voting the whole ballot, Pastor Watson and Holly mentioned before about the importance of the census and the revenue sharing that goes to the states. But let's be clear that the money doesn't go to individuals or localities, it goes to the governor. And then no matter what you may want or your community, the governor can then decide how he wants to spend that money. So that's why it's important. Don't just vote on presidential years. This is important, but vote the whole ballot from top to bottom.
That's right.
Sheriffs in rural areas. Vote for the district attorneys. Those are the people, the police chiefs. All those people are important as you go down. So vote the whole ballot from top to bottom. And that's what I encourage people to do.
Thank you very much. And as I think about the national spread of our different organizations, and I think Reverend Dr. Medley, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, is across the country. I'd like to read some statistics to you regarding the 2016 election. In Milwaukee, for instance, 93,000 Blacks did not vote in 2016. The margin in Wisconsin was 23,000 votes. In Miami, 379,000 African Americans didn't vote. The margin of victory in Florida was 113,000. In Detroit, 277,000 African Americans didn't vote. The margin of victory in Michigan was just 11,000 votes. In Philadelphia, 238,000 African Americans didn't vote. In Pennsylvania, the margin of victory was 44,000. And in Atlanta, 530,000 African American voters did not vote. Georgia, the margin of victory was 211,000. What, in terms of the plan, what is your thought about how the Seventh-day Adventist Church can move out in those states in particular to get more African Americans to vote, more members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church?
Thank you for Attorney Humphreys. It's the evidence that makes the difference. When you have the facts in front of you, that by itself is a motivator to bring about changes. We can say the same about all the federal judges that this administration has appointed to the courts. None of them are Black. That also is a negative statement for us. So here are two things. Number one, in those areas, again, we have a strong coalition of our leadership in those areas who are taking upon themselves to talk to their congregations and their communities about the necessities of getting out to vote and changing the stigma. People of faith, we can pray, but your prayer must be matched with works, and the work is to vote. So there's a whole new messaging that we are advocating in our congregations about the necessity of being participants, active participants in the process of voting. The other concern that I have in those areas is what is targeted in public housing. I'm somebody, I live in Prince George's County now, but I was raised in upstate New York in public housing. And we all know that public housing, unfortunately, is a targeted area to keep the votes suppressed. Individuals who feel so marginalized that they cannot be involved. We want to make sure that our churches are also empowering those in public housing. You may live in a small place, but you do not have a small heart, and you have every right of everyone else. So we're specifically targeting especially public housing individuals because there is a need for empowerment in the least of these communities to make sure that we turn the tides around there. So there is an aggressive, active, individual and collective movement amongst the African American churches in the Seventh-day Adventist Church to target our communities, because if we don't reach them, no one else will.
That's right.
We're taking upon ourselves to be actively involved to do that.
Thank you very much. We have been joined by the Honorable Lauren Underwood, Congresswoman from the 14th Congressional District in Illinois. Good morning and welcome to this session of Wake Up Detroit, the National Edition. And please, would you share with us how things are going in Illinois, in your congressional district? We know that you're up for re-election. Please talk with us.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm glad to be with you. I appreciate the invitation. We are 19 days from the election, and guess what? The election is right now. Every day is election day here in Northern Illinois. Early voting started in late September. We've had huge turnout of people mailing in their ballots, putting them in drop boxes, and showing up to vote early in person. We're encouraging everyone to take advantage of these opportunities to vote early so they can maintain their social distancing, because you should not have to be at risk of catching COVID-19 by exercising our democratic duties and voting.
Now, that is instructive. Could you share with us, provide some insight on the plan? People ask when they're going to the polls, are told to have a plan.
Yes.
Okay, what is that plan?
Okay, so when you say make a plan to vote, it means literally, where are you going to vote? If you're going to vote early, do you know where your early polling place is in person? Do you know where your regular polling place is? Do you know how you're going to get there? You're going to walk? You're going to take some public transportation? You're going to drive? If you live in a state where there might be some lines, do you have your pop-up chair with you? Do you have some snacks? Do you have some water? Do you know who you're voting for all the way down the ballot? And even if you have to flip it over, that you have a plan to vote, that there's no question, there's no ambiguity, and that you have done all of the homework required. Because we know we need to be informed voters. We can't just show up and think that, we're just going to get a sense of what we need to do. We need to know who we're voting for. And so that's what we mean when we say make a plan to vote. Now making the plan doesn't have to take long. It could be 15 minutes to verify your polling location, right? Check and see who's on the ballot. Make sure that you don't have any questions about referenda or ballot questions, or, in my state, we elect judges. And so that's always the hardest part for me, learning more about these judges and determining whether or not we want to retain them. But that's what we mean. And it's something that gives each voter power. This is our time to make change in our community.
And we have heard that people have stood in line for up to 10 hours in some locations. How do you create a plan around the potential of having to stand in line for 10 hours?
I mean, it's disgraceful, the lengths that some communities go to suppress the vote. That's what this is, plain and simple. But we heard Mrs. Obama break it down during the Democratic convention. They may put barriers in place, but if we are willing to persevere, we can ensure that we can cast our ballot and that our ballots can count. And unfortunately, some folks in some communities are going to have to sacrifice a little bit more, right? On campaigns like mine, we are willing to go to great lengths to make sure that all of our voters are able to vote and that their vote is counted and that there's not these barriers in place. But I live in a state, Illinois, that has great voting laws. You know, we have same-day voter registration, for example. We have no-fault absentee voting, which means everybody can vote from home if they choose to. Every state's not like that. And so what can we do to support those folks that are in those communities? Make sure that they know that they have all the facts and they understand their rights. Because it's one thing to wait in line. It's another thing for somebody to try to impose a poll tax. Right? It's another thing for someone to say that you've been kicked off the rolls and when in effect you are on the rolls and you have every right to cast that ballot, right? So, you know, those folks that are in those communities with these long lines and all these barriers in place, they need to be on extra alert, be very familiar with their rights and who they can call if they need some assistance. But when we talk about the plan, here's what we need folks to do. They need to go to iwillvote.com. No matter where you live in the country, because that website can tell you where your early polling place is, where your regular polling place is, confirm your voter registration status, and I believe it links you to see a copy of your ballot. So that's a one-stop shop to find out what you need to know in order to have your plan to vote. Right,
and Congresswoman Underwood, you are a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, we understand, and you are also a nurse.
Yes, sir.
And have been active in nursing as well as in Alpha Kappa Alpha. What message would you deliver to your sorors and to the nurses that you know and have worked with and others? What would be your message?
Well, I first have to acknowledge the esteemed Dorothy Jackson, who is on this panel with me today, because she is the queen at messaging to the sorors around voter participation. However, we know that this year and this election is extra special because we have the opportunity to elect a qualified, competent, excellent leader in Kamala Harris and make sure she becomes the vice president of the United States. We have some extra special pink and green pride in Senator Harris. And so, you know, she's counting on all of us to have her back. That's why I believe we need to go hard and make sure that everybody that we know, especially all the women of Alpha Kappa Alpha, have their plan to vote. And, you know, we're here to answer questions, you know, break down these barriers and make sure folks make the most of these 19 days.
Thank you. And then I will ask the Honorable Joanne Watson, who is the host of Wake Up Detroit, the national edition, I see we have approximately 3 or 4 minutes left. So
yeah, I want to once again welcome the Honorable Congresswoman Lauren Underwood. Thank you so much for blessing us with your presence and your participation, and the fact that you're a young woman in a leadership position. Coming from Illinois, but working on the national level, you give hope. You give a special connection to those young women who look like you, who look like us, who may want to pursue civic engagement, who want to become a part of the leadership of this country. So we applaud your work, your leadership, your efforts, and thank you for being a great role model for those who are watching you right now.
Well, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. Listen, this country has been sustained by the great leadership of African Americans, right, for the last really 400 years. We are now in a place where we have the largest congressional Black caucus in history.
Come on now.
The Black caucus that has the most power in history, and we have the opportunity to determine the electoral outcomes in communities across this country if we vote. There are campaigns spending resources. There are foreign adversaries trying to silence our voices, and we have to overcome. But that means we have to be informed voters, informed consumers of social media. If something doesn't look right, don't share it. Understand the source of the information, because disinformation targeting our community is spreading like wildfire on Facebook and on Twitter. And so in these key weeks, we have to be disciplined, because we will have victory on the other side of this election. I believe it. But it means that we all need to get out and vote.
Excellent, excellent. Well, it's an honor and a privilege to have you here. And certainly, as coming from Detroit, we're the founder of the Congressional Black Caucus, the Congressman Charles Diggs, and one of the dean of the Congressional Black Caucus, John Conyers, hailed from. We certainly have a significant stake in the Congressional Black Caucus and great leaders like yourself. We want to thank everybody who has been a part of this wonderful panel today. You're exemplifying the kind of power that is present in the Get Out the Vote movement nationwide. So we say thank you, Attorney Derek Humphreys. Thank you to Black Congress on Health, Law, Economics, and Education. Thank you to all of our special guests. Thank you. As we wake up Detroit and wake up the world with Get Out the Vote, we must do that. We want to thank everyone who's been a part. We thank God for R.J. Watkins. He's a Watkins and Watkins Broadcasting, WHPR. We thank God for Tim and Maxine and Renee, and we thank you for being part of our audience. Please stay tuned, because there's more Wake Up Detroit National Edition coming straight ahead. Wake Up Detroit, I'm Joanne Watson, and this is your wake-up call.
When a brown girl child is born, the earth shifts. The sun is at half-mast. The moon waits for her first cry. The ancestors set the table. The flowers turn red as blood. This is your land, continent daughter, with tree trunk legs and branches for arms. This is your soil, black and fertile as your eyes facing an apartheid Jim Crow current past memory. Some of us begin the removal of shackles at birth. We grow into the armor of struggle quickly. We brew courage in our tea, blend bravery into our Sunday dinners. Joanne Watson, you understand nation building is not a part-time job. This dedicated life is sometimes lonely, a vulnerable choice, but it is the only way you know how to operate. You are wired for the movement in your black women bones, even when tired, still fighting, still organizing, still singing morning spirituals. You were born to lead, even in your own family, the eldest of 10 children born to Jefferson and Lestine. You made Damon, Nefertari, Stephen, Maya. Her children always knew she was larger than life. When you are a woman in the movement, you take the children with you on the journey. You bring the babies with you to your college classes. When you travel to Ghana for the first time, it will be with your daughters in tow. When you are a fearless, nationalist thinking mama, mothering never stops with your own babies. 30 godchildren and mentees across the globe. The daughter of a ministering mother is already ordained for good trouble. A seer, a prophetic young student preparing for her lifelong role as servant to her own community. When your purse was snatched in a Farmer Jack parking lot many years ago with your kids' tickets to Run DMC in the purse, you made sure they still got to that concert and even hosted Melly Merrill and the Furious Five in your living room, because queens make it look easy. When you're a single mom, people will tell you what you can't do. Instead, you moved to New York City with all 4 of your C's to do your necessary work with the YWCA, because queens make it look easy. Ghana, Togo, South Africa, where is your heart, Mama Watson? Nurturing spirit, baking melt in your mouth, homemade biscuits. How many hours do you sleep, Warrior Watson, with endless work ethic and blue-collar blood racing through your veins? How do we say thank you for your work, your time, your heart? We know you will never really retire. There is a fire on the path to freedom. There is smoke, there is sacrifice. There are stories of justice, of women, of Tubman, Sojourner, of Angela, Asada, Coretta, and Merle, and Betty, and Queen Mother Moore. Some of us know we are ancient, that our marrow is laced with legacy, that we are here to bring light to our daughters. Sometimes it just takes one woman, a mother, a grandmother, a Spitfire, griot, a sister, the only woman to lead the NAACP's largest chapter. She, daughter of the movement, of Rosa, of Irma. She was a birth that gave birth to possibility for other young activists like me, a true D woman, frontline Fatima, Nigerian blood, councilwoman, leader, truth teller, Joanne Watson, social worker, president of the Anti-Klan Network, sister, inspiration, dedicated to the protection of girls and the voices of women wrapped in West African beauty, regal and resilient. Wake up, Detroit. Wake up, South Africa. Wake up, Cuba. Wake up, small business owners. Wake up, White House. Wake up, reparations. Wake up, teachers. Wake up, women. Wake up, schools. Sleeping is not an option when the Honorable Joanne Watson is in the room.